We're going to keep on the story about the aftermath of the floods. Of course, the Premier of KwaZulu Natal describing it as an unprecedented disaster in the history of our province, saying both the timing and the severity of the flood disaster clearly suggests that we live in times of ecological imbalance linked to climate change and environmental degradation. Of course, this is still being found out, but we have two of our reporters on the ground. Simpiwe Makanya is at the beach and Nozintombi Mia is at the airport precinct, the old airport. And we'll start with you, Nozintombi. What's the latest where you are? Do we know if the ministers have arrived?
So much, Desiree. You know, today's morning meeting briefing here at the Dubai Trade Port is absolutely critical for leadership here and for government, because this is where they take their first stance and do a show of force, solidarity and cohesion, and give light to the people of KwaZulu Natal who've been receiving a battering over the next few days. And it's not starting off to a fantastic start. We were supposed to have a briefing at 9 o'clock sharp, but we are still waiting for several of the ministers to start making their way here. We do know for a fact that the Minister of Transport, Human Settlements and Communication have made their way here. We are still waiting for the Premier as well as the Minister of Water and Sanitation. But it's not boding well if the logistics themselves at the onset are not cohesive. So they're not off to a good start. And this is, again, reiterating the concerns and the fears of the residents on the ground that we spoke to yesterday about them not seeing, them hearing what the Premier was saying about government being reactive and government trying to be on the ground and government responding, but not seeing this in words and not seeing it in action. And this start today, which was a critical first stance, show of cohesive support, is really not off to a good start so far, Desiree.
And Nozintombi, when do we expect to get the latest update?
Yeah. So what's expected to happen today is that all of the ministers, the premiers and high-ranking officials are supposed to be singing from the same hymn book. There's supposed to be an aerial inspection that is supposed to go from the north to the south coast of Durban, so that they can get an aerial view of the extent of the damage, which is part one of the plan that was supposed to happen. They were then supposed to then do drive-ins to the specific areas. We do know that the Minister of Water is supposed to start off at the Tongaat plant in the next hour or so, to get an idea of what the situation is with the water boards, with the water reservoirs that have been impacted and affected, which pumps have been affected and impacted. The Minister of Transport is supposed to get an idea of an overview of the big highways that have been affected by the sinkholes, affected by the damage to the flooding, as well as the Human Settlement Minister trying to get into the RDP areas, into the informal settlements, into the houses to see the extent of damage. And they're supposed to collate a document that will take stock of financially how much has this cost. Overall, we know it's going to be in the billions. The damage to the city, to houses, residents, has been estimated at billions. But they need to actually get collated figures as to how much the damage was to the road infrastructure, how much the damage has been to the water infrastructure, and the extent to which informal settlements and housing settlements have been impacted on, so that they can start working on a budget from the disaster relief funds that have been released earlier this week by the President, and start distributing those monies towards the different high-ranking officials that will start putting interventions. For example, a very basic first step. The Premier said by Tuesday water tankers would be sent to different communities. Yesterday afternoon, from early in the morning till late in the evening, There were still no water tankers that were on the ground. Already, that's not showing a sign of, that's not giving a lot of confidence to the communities that are impacted. We saw visuals of community members using wheelbarrows and buckets, some using makeshift transportation devices to try and get to the nearest taps, where they were waiting for queues in over an hour just to be able to get access to water, where there should have been central points established where water tankers were put in. Again, government being reactive and not proactive. A first start again today to a show of solidarity. We still have not gotten underway. We still do not know the extent to which the damage is. The disaster relief funds are sitting there waiting to be distributed. We know that the gift of the givers has been asking for the tractors to be brought in so that some of the road excavation clearage can start getting underway. It's almost been a week since the flooding on Monday, and the government is still scrambling to try and get things into place. This is problematic, and this is what needs to happen, and this is the action that people need to start seeing. And I do know that my colleague Simpiwe Makanya, who is on the beachfront, has been giving you visuals of the debris that has been strewn on the beachfronts. The holiday plans from holiday makers that have been affected. Again, it falls into the same circle around the issue of a show of force, a show of leadership, proactiveness taking place, and people, community members, seeing government being at the head and not at the back. And I'm going to cross now to Simpiwe so Simpiwe can give you more detailed, updated information on the beachfronts about the devastation that has been wrought there. Simpiwe.
Well, thank you very much to my colleague Nozintombi Mia. Indeed, we have been here since the early hours of this morning, just monitoring the activities around the Durban beachfront, and I can certainly tell you that more and more people are arriving here, all in an effort to try and clean up the mess that is just behind me. I'm going to ask my colleague Sbu Tembe to give you a sense of what is currently happening. Young and old coming here to take part in this initiative of cleaning up the debris that has been, lying next to the beach front. And I'm going to ask my colleague now, Sbu Tembe, to come closer to me as we introduce our next guest. He's all the way from Mexico. He's a tourist coming here to Durban. Sir, thank you very much for your time. And I can certainly tell you that you have been busy looking at your T-shirts.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful thing how the community and everybody's taking care of their planet. No? Yeah, so I don't know who bring the table, the globes, the bags, and just that naturally bring us all together.
Yeah. Ram, talk to us about what the South African government can learn from Mexican officials, for instance, when it comes to the issue of pollution.
Well, it's not that Mexico is on the top of that, but I see that we have some politics that have helped. For example, there's no plastic bags at all in the supermarkets. That's a very simple thing that it works just if you do it. Now the customers has the responsibility to bring their things to carry. So no more bags, like zero. Also like this material, like I think it's called styrofoam, it's prohibited because it takes eons to disintegrate. So of course this is not good for the owners of those businesses, but if with the support of the government, like you can still do the same thing with other materials that are more that have less impact to the planet Earth.
Thank you so much for your time, Ram.
Thank you.
That's Ram Miranda. He is all the way from Mexico, who has just come here to Durban as to enjoy the holiday season. And I'm once again going to ask another guest to join us now as we continue this discussion. Sir, thank you very much for your time. You also came here very early this morning to clean up the mess.
Yes, I did, and it's very close to my heart. I'm currently the chairman of Lifesaving KZN, and I'd just like to thank all our lifesavers, that have been involved in rescues throughout Monday, Tuesday. We've got some guys doing aerial rescues in Prospecton. We've got other guys riding boats up and down the streets. rescuing people, so thank you to all of them. Secondly, I'd definitely like to thank all our life-saving clubs. Durban Surf, I'm just going to pull the chairman of Durban Surf a little bit closer and introduce him. Tim?
No, it is fine, sir. I just wanted us to talk more about the kind of litter that is lying around this area. Obviously, you use the beach very often.
Yes, I do, and as the speaker before me said, styrofoam is a big problem. Unfortunately, a lot of this litter is up in our rural areas, and when these sort of floods happen, it washes down the rivers, and this is where it lands up, is on the beach. So we definitely, from a governmental point of view, need to push the litter issues inland, especially in our rural areas, give them the basic needs that they need to contain their litter and to look after that, and then we won't have these sort of catastrophes going forward.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, Desiree, there you have it. Those are just some of the people who are here to the Durban beachfront as part of taking an initiative of cleaning up the dirt that is lying here at the beachfront. Of course, a lot of holiday makers would have hoped for a much different environment. I spoke to a few of them earlier on this morning, saying they came from Limpopo. Some of them came from Gauteng to enjoy the beach, but unfortunately, due to the recent floods, that's not going to be the case for those holiday makers. The Premier of KwaZulu Natal, yesterday, saying that they are expecting over 300,000 visitors to come for this long Easter weekend to enjoy their stay here in Durban. But of course, a lot has been said about the safety of those visitors, because when you look at the issue of some of the major highways in the province, I'm talking about your N2 and N3, some of them are still not operational due to the damage to infrastructure that has been suffered. And I can basically add that Premier Zikalala yesterday saying that they are still calling on visitors to continue coming to the province, despite, of course, the situation and that we know is unfolding. Over 341 fatalities have been reported since the floods started, and 55 injuries, of course, have been confirmed. And the authorities are saying that they are still, trying to quantify the amount of damage that has been suffered as a result of these floods. And we'll continue, Desiree, to be here on the ground and give our viewers live updates in terms of the situation as it unfolds.
I just want to ask you this quickly. You've been at the beach the entire morning, and there were lesser numbers earlier. We see on the shots that more people have come through. Is this a coordinated effort? But I also want to ask you, as more and more people come through, what sort of conversations are going on there about the events of the past few days?
Desiree, if I'm not mistaken, when we came here this morning, we saw about 5 people, who started this initiative. And just after our first crossing, then the numbers started to increase. And obviously, these are people, most of them are people who use the beach very often, coming from the Durban Surf Club. And some of them are just ordinary members of the community who are saying that they need to take it upon themselves to see to it that the beach reopens very soon, because that is what they need in terms of having access to it. And of course, we heard from the municipality yesterday saying that these affected beaches will not be operational, at least for the time being, while measures are still being put in place to try and put the situation back to normality, Desiree. But the sense that I'm getting here on the ground is that of, working together. People are saying, let's work together and try and assist even those people who have lost their homes, Desiree. Because not only the issue of the beaches, of course, there are over 40,000 people that have been affected by these floods, and many of them are without shelter. But the provincial government yesterday saying that they are going to be ensuring that those who have been affected are provided with a temporary shelter, while, of course, measures are being implemented to try and see to it that some of them rebuild their homes. And we'll have to see if that actually occurs. And if you speak about the issue of tourism in this province, Desiree, I can certainly tell you that yesterday the Premier saying that about 10% of the province's GDP comes from the tourism sector. So many people have had to cancel their bookings here because some of the holiday accommodation have been affected also by the recent floods, which obviously is not a good thing for those businesses who are operating and who are hoping to gain more money in terms of this holiday season. Desiree.
Thanks for bringing us up to speed, Simpiwe, and just picking up on what Simpiwe just said about 40,000 people being affected. I'm picking up from something the Premier said yesterday, saying as of today a total of number of 40,723 people affected. Sadly, 341 fatalities recorded, with eThekwini standing at 301, Ugu 6, Umzinyati 2, King Cetshwayo 4, Ilembe 28, and we're still tallying up a number of missing people. A total of 55 injuries have been registered. More than 248 schools have been damaged. Thanks again, Simpiwe, for bringing us up to speed with what's happening at the Durban beaches.